Claims that are not resolved will result in trial. The best results at trial are those who are best prepared. Those who are best prepared have the best command of the facts. The best command of the facts require immediate action, and immediate action requires preparation to get out there right after the accident. The accident fundamentals are we want a requisite level of response. We don't have to go nuclear on every accident, but we want to make sure that we take advantage of every opportunity we have. We don't under-respond to the accident. Additionally, we want the fullest appropriate response. Our goal within our office when we get a call in a case like this is to be prepared to defend it if we had to within 4 weeks. Now, the reality is that would never happen. But the situation is we want to have everything locked up, get the jump on it, and take advantage of those circumstances from where we have it. You know, years ago, those of us of a generation recall those photographs in December of 1968 where Apollo 8 first went to the moon. And as it went behind the moon, we lost all contact with them on that dark side of the moon, no communication. Well, after your driver calls in, that's often the situation that you have. You have limited information, and in this case, we had limited information. We knew that an accident had occurred, the location of the accident, and that it was a fatal accident. We knew where the location was. We were able to bring it up on Google Maps. Well, the immediate status was somewhat lost to us. We are on that dark side of the moon. Well, a couple months before this, I had been watching the chase of the last of the Boston Marathon bombers as they chased them into that boat in Watertown, Massachusetts. And I'm watching it first on the television news, then I would have switched over to Twitter, and I saw the folks on Twitter had almost instantaneous information. And I thought, gee, how are they getting that information? Well, what I learned was that they were following, and what we can do now is to use an app on your phone. Given the location, the jurisdiction, you can tune in to what is happening, what are the circumstances, what are the injuries, other information that's available. Well, once that call came in, the company went into full operation. They began a lockdown of their data, the satellite data, as well as the documents that they had in the company. This is key. There's a concept called spoliation that we will talk about. In that same time, our office, once we get the call, we are looking in terms of being in contact with our driver, assigning an independent adjuster, and assigning an accident reconstruction team, because we know it's a severe accident, a fatal accident that requires an immediate response. There is an advantage in having an attorney do this. The reason for that is attorney-client privilege. What you say to your attorney, what your driver says, is protected information. If you don't go through that way, it can be discoverable. It can be found out. When the driver, in this case, we provided guidance. The facts of the accident are provided to us, and those facts that are given to us as the attorney are protected by attorney-client privilege. That doesn't arise if they're given to some other individual, some third party, rather than given to the attorney themselves. We have many clients that have the drivers on virtually every accident call us, give us that information. I take down the notes. I don't take a statement. We'll talk about that later. And with those notes, it gives the client the information that they need, as well as the insurance company in this. A close second to attorney-client privilege, not as protective, but gives you some protection, is attorney work product. If the statement is taken by a person who is working at the direction of the attorney, then that can be alleged to be attorney work product. If we assign the independent adjuster, assign the accident reconstruction people, it can be considered that they are in our guidance and employ, and thus it's attorney work product. Is a wording work product is inviolate as attorney-client privilege? No. But it gives you some protection, and it's better than just not having any protection at all. Well, in this case, we sent out the independent adjuster. We wanted the evidence to be preserved, identify any witnesses that are out there, and photograph the scene. Let us know what we're dealing with. Give us that first eyes on. You know, in the 35 years I've been doing this, this has changed quite a bit. It used to be we'd get a verbal description with someone with a pocket full of quarters from a payphone. Now we're able to get this information almost instantaneously by the photographs they show us. And in this case, we knew what we were dealing with. Severe accident, fatal accident. And we needed to ratchet things up to make sure we gave a full response. Well, the independent adjuster will be out there to collect the information. Get the first preservation photographs immediately afterwards. See if he can identify the other driver and connect with the police. Many of these independent adjusters are former police officers, so they have the advantage of being able to connect with them and give the information that they have, see what they can find out from those who are also serving at this time. Take the driver for his drug and alcohol testing. DOT requirements, as you well know. A driver who's in an accident that involves hearse, nursed, or towed. Hearsed, somebody's killed. Nursed, someone's treated away from the scene. Towed, a vehicle's towed. On those last two, there's no requirement of a drug and alcohol test unless a ticket is issued. On a death case, you have to have the drug and alcohol testing. But I tell the independent adjuster, I don't want any information. Don't take any information from the driver yourself. Don't take a statement from the driver. I'll talk to the driver. We want to give as much protection from discovery as we can of that information, preserve it. One of the things that I get a lot of pushback on, a lot of people question, is when I say don't take statements. Many people feel, well, geez, we always take a statement from our driver. And usually the next thing that I say is, okay, why? Why do you do that? And the only answer I really get back is, well, because we always have. There's an article on our webpage, cdl-law.com, that I did for the Pennsylvania Motor Truck Association. In that article, I lay out the 6 reasons you don't want to take a statement from your driver. We don't get statements from the plaintiffs. Many of these facts are going to be challenged, if not undermined, by the electronic data we have, the electronic control module, other information on there. You can't use it at trial. If your driver doesn't remember what happened, the statement is not going to be usable at trial in these circumstances. And in the worst of cases, in a fatality, if your driver is criminally charged, you have taken away his Fifth Amendment rights against self-incrimination. Don't take a statement from your driver. Not even a summary by the independent adjuster. Well, once we get the independent adjuster out there, he gets on the scene, he shows us the photographs. The next step we want to do is to get the reconstruction team on the scene. This is a group of individuals, each with their own specialties, that they can respond to this right away. In this circumstance, we got out there and there's a need for the immediacy of the reconstruction. Think about it. A jury's in there. They've got to decide credibility, who they believe, who's the most persuasive. Our job at the end of the day is persuasion. And they're faced with a situation where there is somebody who went out there right when it happened, got information, evidence, documented it right away, as opposed to those on the billboards who send their people out there weeks, if not months later. Who's going to be more persuasive? That's why in a severe case, we want to get the reconstruction people on the scene immediately, right when it happens. And I understand you're not hearing the videos. So let me, if there's anything we can do on here to do that. But let's check. Let's see if we can do this as well. In addition, the first one out there is the reconstruction investigator. This is the individual who is going to document the sound and document the situation. I understand you're not getting any sound out there from the videos. This will be the silent movie edition. I will fill in the blanks on this. The reconstruction investigator is the person who goes out. He is trained by the reconstruction people to go out and do the documentation. He'll go out and use the various technologies and techniques they have in order to do that. So what we're going to do is to go forward and look at some of the specifics that we do. Well, back at our office, while the reconstruction people are heading out to the scene, in our office, we are starting to respond ourselves. First of all, we'll start to monitor the news media. Second of all, we'll start to monitor the social media. Key things, again, because of the immediacy of what we have and what we need. The news media. One of the first things we want to do is to get online or to give us background information, what's happening, what the situation is. Plus, it gives us access to the layout, photographs, and videos that we can use at a later time. This was in a suburban major area, so what we have is the helicopters that go out, circle the scene, take photographs of the truck, the intersection, as well as videos. As the morning progresses, we get information not only about the fatality, we had gotten that information before, but we get information as well in terms of who the individual is in that circumstance and where they're from. The comments are another major part that we're looking at in these type of situations. In these comments, what we have are the views and information, perspectives of the individuals who are out there. You know, for example, we look at here, Erica Ajay. I don't even drive, but after reading the driver's manual book, it would become common sense to not be too close to a truck when it's turning. Now, not just are we looking for the information and the community attitude, what do those people around this circumstance feel about the situation? But also we're looking about, in today's world, people are too busy to stick around, but they still want the attention on social media or on the news media. So they'll jump in and give information with regard to the that they were the witness to the accident, so that we can help to find that out. One of the key things I want to pass on in this, I recently had a fatal accident a couple weeks ago, and the news report that was on there, a television station, was on the scene right there, totally had it screwed up, had bad information out there for the first 6 or 7 hours until the local sheriff's office posted a correct read on their Facebook page. And well, the news station had it all backwards, so that we had crossed the center line and hit a car head on an interstate. The local sheriff finally cleared that up, and the news television station gave a half-hearted retraction, left up what they originally said, but just added to the fact that, well, actually the state police said the man pulled off the berm in front of our truck. Again, key thing we're looking for are the photographs, the information, the documentation that we have on this. In addition to that, we're getting on social media. It is important to do that immediately, because friends and family will want to preserve the individual and take down the information. You got to get it right away. We're able to access that. It is publicly available. We can only get that information that we can get just like anyone from the public can see. We can't friend them or pretend that we're somebody else. The rules of ethics prohibit that. But in these circumstances, what we can do is go on right away, do a search, and see what's publicly accessible. Well, in that, we got information and got the photographs on this showing the lifestyle and choices of that individual. Well, the individual wasn't drinking at the time of the accident, but what we can do is use this as a foundation, because the damages in a case like this are going to be the circumstance where the individual was claiming the loss of future earnings in their life. Well, we'll take that information about their lifestyle, their habits, their health, and can use that to make a determination as to what their life expectancy is, because life expectancy is the measure of those damages. And by that information that we gather, even if they're not doing those circumstances at the time of the accident, we can work those out. I had a case in Las Vegas a couple years ago, young woman out there, 30-some years old. Their economists projected a life expectancy based upon federal government charts, females of her age to be about 88 years old. Well, we looked at her health history, her activities, what she engaged in, the things that she did, unhealthy habits she had. By the time our expert was done, he had that life expectancy down from 88 years of age to 48 years of age. A difference of 40 years of lost income, pain and suffering, etc., all important. Well, while we're doing that in the office, back at the accident scene, the accident reconstructionists are back out there doing their process as well. The foundation of the accident reconstruction is the information they get at the scene. What they want to do and what they get at the scene is to get the evidence at the scene, the physical evidence, the skid marks, the gouge marks, to be able to put that evidence in the context of where it occurred on the accident and what happened after that. Evidence collection is one of the key things because the engineering is based upon and founded upon the evidence that they find and locate at the scene. The accident reconstruction investigator is the first one on the scene. He will document and photograph what happened in the accident out there. Let's get not only the vehicles, their position if they're still there, but let's get the road, what the markings are on the road, the gouges, the demarcations, etc. in that regard. We want to do the scene and we want to do the vehicles. Also, one of the newest technologies out there is laser scans. Because with the laser scan, they can set this up, and instead of the old days when I started doing this, where you had a wheel that you pushed along, some of you veterans may recall that, to measure different parts of the skid marks, the roadway, and everything else. And then we progressed to the almost like a laser surveying model, the total station system that many police have. Now we set up a laser, let the laser spin around, shoot its beam out, and record the bounce backs, take those shadows and use it as something that we can use to construct the overall pattern and picture, in effect, of this whole location. Where we have come from the laser scan at the scene, let me show you what the raw data looks like. When they get it back, and again, you'll see this sketchy picture there. You can make out a little bit of the intersection on there. You can see what they did to give us an overview of the entire perspective. Shows you a little more detail here, the area of the accident and where the impact occurred. And that gives us a feel for and data that we can use later on. And I'll show you how we use this in a better format. What happens after this is situation, what we want to do is to do the vehicles themselves. Because even with all the technology we have, one of the key factors in this could be, depending on the accident, the crush factors of the vehicles. Once we get this scanned, we have the data in place that we can use this to any type of situation we want to be able to use it persuasively to the jury from different perspectives. Even I've had in some cases where we put the digital camera in effect right in the driver's seat and let the jury have the perspective of, yeah, this is what the driver faced. Gee, what do I expect them to do in those circumstances? Well, in addition to the scene inspection, another person will be involved here from the reconstruction team will be the mechanical engineer, the person who knows and goes over the vehicle itself, inspects the various aspects of the vehicle to see what the condition was at the time of the accident. If there's a DOT inspection pursuant to the CVSA, and the CVSA, if you're not familiar with it, consider joining, because it is the organization of law enforcement and other trucking officials that put together all of the circumstances with regard to the out-of-service criteria, what an inspection should entail. Every April, and we're in April now. It's tough to keep track of the days, let alone the months. But every April, they put out a book of photographs, color photographs in detail, that the inspectors use as the criteria for what is the circumstance of a specific defect that would be problematic or ultimately put your vehicle out of service. All right, well, let's go back. If a DOT inspector has done an inspection based upon the Commercial Vehicle Safety Alliance criteria, which is what they do on their roadsides, that is the best evidence you're going to have. We're going to have a law enforcement official who is going to be able to testify that that vehicle complied with and met all the requirements. Now, you may have seen on a post-accident investigation where there will be a list of violations below, and then there'll be a line on the right-hand side, was this from the accident or caused by the accident? If there are violations that the inspector says they question whether they are part of the accident or from the accident, that's when we want to make sure that we have it inspected, somebody of our choice, a competent, qualified vehicle engineer to be able to do that. Is it crash related? Well, we did that in this circumstance and we had no problem with the vehicle. We did the vehicle inspection, and part of that inspection is this. We're going to look at the brakes. And importantly, we're going to look at the electronic data, because on these commercial vehicles, most of the engines since about 2000, you're going to find an electronic control module. That control module is going to give you the data for the hard brake. It's going to be on there, and for many units, it'll have both the first or the second hard brakes on that. We want to get that download, make sure we preserve that. What was our speed at the time of the brake? When did we engage the brake? Was the clutch engaged? Those type of facts. But in addition to that, the four-wheeler, just like you and I driving around every day, is going to have data similar to that recorded in our airbag module. And depending on the make, the model, the year of the car, we can have that download done by engineers with the software for that particular vehicle to do it. A little more challenging. We have to get permission of the owners of the vehicle, either the insurance company or the individual themselves who owns the vehicle, in order to do it. It's not our data. But one of the first things we do is to shoot out a preservation letter to the insurance company, to the estate, preserve that data, keep that information. We want to make sure that we get that so we can download it at a later time. The preservation is a key component of what we want to do on this. When the ECM is downloaded, it doesn't necessarily mean that the data is gone, but it means that we have it and we have the data in a protected format on that. It'll show you the hard brake. What was the speed when our vehicle's deceleration reached a certain G level? In an accident that doesn't have a hard brake, you're not going to have that data. But depending on the type of engine that you have, basically a Detroit engine that uses DDEC software in it, that will record the last stop. It'll always give you approximately 90 seconds of data as to the preceding time that vehicle is operated. Well, what does that mean? Well, if you're running vehicles that have Detroit engines that have this DDEC ECM unit in it, and it means that if that vehicle is stopped after an accident, it will have what the speed was for the preceding 90 seconds at least before that accident. But if that vehicle is turned on and moved, or if that vehicle in some instances is just moved, guess what? It's no longer the last stop. That data is overwritten. That's why you have to know ahead of time. What type of engines do we run? What data does the ECM record? And how do we do it? What do we have to do to protect and preserve that data? Disengage the axle? Because the axle spins, and it is by the electronic impulses of the spinning axle that tell and project out to the ECM data that's preserved in terms of what the speed is. You need to know that ahead of time. Work with either your shop or, more importantly, an accident reconstructionist ahead of time to know what you need to do to protect yourself. Another source of data is the GPS system. Now, in this system, in this instance, our driver had his own GPS in. Those GPS, those private GPS units, will keep and maintain the data in there in terms of speed, etc., where they've been, all kind of data. Now, in this instance, this was downloaded and we found it did not have any relevant data involved in it. One of the first things I do when I talk to the independent adjuster to go out in the scene is to say, look, once you take the photographs, once you document everything, get things squared away, look around to see if there are any video cameras around. Is there anything around that could have recorded this accident? A couple years ago, I'm reading an article on the webpage of the LA Times, and it talked about a small city that had installed video cameras to the extent they had more cameras than the entirety of the city of San Francisco. And I'm thinking to myself, gee, that's probably, someplace in the Silicon Valley, Cupertino, where Apple has its headquarters, some high-tech center. Well, as I read down the article, I was surprised to find out that the city that had more cameras per capita than anybody else turned out to be that high-tech center of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, home of the Amish country. Well, you think about it. If a warehouse surveillance camera in Brooklyn could capture the Miracle on the Hudson, if there are any vehicles around where your accident occurs, there is a good chance, an excellent chance, that a camera is going to capture it. be it on a security camera, be it on a Ring doorbell. I had one a few years ago where a passing Uber driver captured it on 86th Street in Manhattan. It's out there. It's just a matter of getting after it and getting it and doing it immediately. Several years ago, in this case, we had a surveillance camera. We found out one after the accident was at, you can see the top of this picture there where some trucks are parked. That was a dairy operation up there. And they had a camera that was projecting out, where our independent adjuster went over, talked to the folks, and while they would not let him have the video, the raw video itself, they allowed him to go in and to copy that video that showed down to the intersection where the accident occurred. Here's that video that we have. You can see our truck with the headlights on coming up to the intersection. The Ward truck stops opposite us. There, that black car going past, that was the claimant vehicle. Let's go back a second. Watch it again. For the claimant vehicle coming from the left side, there's the Ward truck. Here comes the claimant vehicle flying by everybody to try to beat the light. The accident ensues. Well, he then tried to take a close-up version of that same video. Our truck comes up, its lights on. The claimant vehicle comes out into the scene. Now, one of the problems we have here, as Steve explains in this clip, is what we had was a copy of the surveillance video. And the problem with that is this. If we have the actual video itself, we know how many frames, or the accident reconstructors know how many frames per second that it runs. So by using that frames per second, they're able to calculate with accuracy the speed of a vehicle, because they'll know the distance and the actual speed on it. You can't do that as well with a copy. You don't have that calibrated speed per second of the video that you do in the original. Well, if you remember, here's the post-accident scene, and directly across from us, that green truck is a Ward trucking truck. Ward did not equip all of their truck with videos, but this driver, as does many drivers, went out and got his own video, got his own camera, and mounted it in the truck. Well, the police went to him and got the video after the fact. And he was located, again, opposite where we were coming from. And I will warn you, this is violent. This is the Ward truck coming up to the accident scene. Our truck's coming the opposite direction, starts to make its turn when the claimant vehicle comes into the accident scene. You know, in today's world, that is expected that there be video out there of these accidents. The accident I was telling you about a few weeks ago, about just a few weeks ago, where the driver pulled out in front of us, one of the comments online was, well, geez, all of these trucks have video cameras on them now. Not all of them, but more and more do. When this all started out, having cameras in the truck, I thought, gee, that's the last thing we need. You know? I mean, I'm going to need, another reason I'm going to need a proctologist to get back bad evidence. But as it progressed, I came to think about it and go, look, we get blamed for everything anyhow, don't we? So we might as well have cameras in our trucks that protect us from the worst of the situations. And what, in these circumstances, that we're able to do with the video is, number one, defend yourself. Number two, train your drivers and show that you have provided training to protect yourself against claims of negligent or even outrageously inadequate training of the drivers. And third, I've had circumstances where the videos show the other side at fault. We've used that video as the basis to sue the other side, not only recovering our damage to the truck, but get a judgment that keeps them from suing. Because in today's world, you can be sued by anyone for anything, and we well know they'll do it. Well, that video that we just got from the Ward truck and that scan we talked about, 15, 20 minutes ago, the laser scan, what we were able to do, the accident reconstruction, is integrate those two to take the data we got, because we were out at the scene that day and they documented it right away, with the video we captured, and put the two together with that, what looks like raw squiggles and outlines of data and shadows, to take this, integrate it with that digital data, so that now we can provide a look from above, from different angles, from any perspective we want, in order to show the jury what the situation is. Now, in some cases, what we do, and in the case I was talking about, the fatal about a week or so ago, we were able to take a drone up, and it showed the whole circumstances, where the other driver pulled out in front of us, where we ended up after the fact, the route in between. The drones will give us an overhead view, and it is among the latest technology that we use in order, again, to convey the information and to persuade the jury. But this accident that we're talking about today, the one we're looking at from the beginning, couldn't do it. There was an airport nearby. We couldn't operate the drone in that airspace. So what we did with the technology is to create what I call a tech drone, a virtual drone. And with that data from the laser scanning, we're able to give the same perspective digitally. And again, pivot, go through, show what the data is and what's recorded and all that, so that we can show the jury the different perspective. There's the dairy at the bottom now, where we got the video camera from. Well, we get out there, and with immediate response, we get the data, we get the information in our office, we lock down the data at the trucking company. The ancient Greek philosopher said, Archimedes said, "Give me a place to stand, and I can move the world." Well, that evidence, the initial information that we got, was the foundation of our defense in this case. It was the evidence upon which we can move the case and do what we need to do. First thing we do is follow up, post-accident. That independent adjuster who did everything at the scene, once we get the police report, we get out there and have him interview the witnesses, those who are identified who saw this, so we can lock them into their stories, get statements, find out what they're going to say, where do we stand in the circumstance. Other thing in this, there was issued a traffic ticket to our driver on this. Well, the knee-jerk reaction is, gee, we got to fight this, we got to contest it. What you need to do is take a look at what the law is in your state. Pennsylvania, in state court cases, the outcome of a traffic ticket is inadmissible. The courts have said that, traffic tickets, a lot of people just pay them rather than take time off of their job or from their lives to come in and to do that ticket, to fight it. So just because somebody paid it, we're not going to let you use it against us. There's even cases out there which seem contrary to that logic, but this is the law, that said, well, heck, if you fought it and lost, we're still not going to let them use against it. Then there's a state law that limits the use and prohibits the use of traffic tickets in civil cases. Now, if the case is in federal court, that's a different story, and the case is admissible. But if it's in state court in Pennsylvania, similarly in New Jersey, you can plead guilty with civil reservation. That means that you can plead guilty to a ticket, but it cannot be used against you in court. The person, the driver, has to be able to do that and do it correctly the first time. And shortly after this accident occurred, as soon as an estate was taken out, suit was filed. But we filed suit against the estate. I have a lot of trouble sometimes getting insurance companies in particular to grasp that concept. They go, wait a minute, we're the defendants in cases. We don't file suit. Here's the thing. We want to get out there and we want to be aggressive and get after these things. A number of years ago, I'm watching a football game on television. The color commentator was number 8 in the middle there, Steve Young. And it was a game that had important playoff implications for both teams. Steve Young was the color commentator. The announcer right before the game said, Steve, you played for a lot of big games, played for Coach Walsh in these games with the 49ers. What did Bill Walsh tell you before every game that was important, like this one, that needed to win? What were his words in the key games? And I'm thinking to myself, Bill Walsh, man, he's a smart guy. He invented the West Coast offense, won Super Bowls. But more than that, he coached at Stanford, was known as an intellectual. In fact, when they wrote a book about him, they called it genius. He must have something from philosophy, psychology, Shakespeare, something smart to say. And Steve Young goes, you know what? Before every crucial game, Coach Walsh said the same thing to us. Hit them first. Well, when we have the opportunity in this litigation, that's the mentality we want to have. Hit them first. Don't sit back. Keep things in a file. Wait for them to come after us. If we have an argument that we weren't at fault and we suffered damage, we want to file suit against them. Draymond Green keeps that same mentality alive today. You know, we filed suit against the estate in this case, and there's a number of reasons. Number one, the primary thing is this. This accident happened in a suburban area. I am sure that the Center City law firm would have filed it in Center City had we not acted first. In Pennsylvania, we have the advantage that wherever the complaint is first filed, that court decides where the case is going to be heard. That's not a guarantee it's going to be in that county, but I've only had one county in 35 years pass it back to another county. The key thing there is there's a great difference in the outcome of cases or the value of cases as to whether they are in one jurisdiction versus another. The other thing is discovery. We file first. We are bringing the suit against basically the insurance company for the four-wheeler, and they're being defended by their insurance company attorney, not the billboard attorney. So we have the opportunity, because we're in the suit and the billboard attorney's not, in order to do discovery, have subpoenas to get information to go through all that. In this case, we were able to recover all of our damages from the lawsuit against the estate of the individual in the accident. But we took this case ultimately to mediation before the estate ever filed suit against us. And we were able to get it resolved short of a great deal of litigation costs, and for an amount extremely reasonable under the circumstances of this case. You know, here's the key thing. The accidents and the liability, the questions, they're all there. But the key thing is this. Rather than sit back and let ourselves be a profit center for other individuals, we need to get out there and get after it. We need to bring the fight to them. We need to respond to the accidents immediately, get on the scene, document it, and be prepared so that we are ready if and when the time comes. Thank you very much, Bill. Are there any questions out there?
Everyone can talk now.
What?
Can you hear me?
What?
Can you hear me?
Hello.
Hi. I have a question for you with regards to the accident investigation from a safety perspective.
Okay.
Companies that have CDL drivers and need to be compliant with DOT FMCSA have obligations to have safety policies for their drivers and things like this. And it's most unfortunate that when there's a third-party liability that comes into play, the legal advice often ties our hands with regards to our normal safety policy.
I appreciate what you're saying, and I'm probably one of the major offenders of that. One of the key things I think you've got to look at is under the circumstances, there is a balance that needs to be made between the safety policies and the potential exposure in litigation. And some of the things I talked about today in terms of not giving statements, those type of things. You know, the question comes in terms of the policies or the procedures. Is there another way that we can get this so that it's the benefit of both the safety policies we have, fulfilling those obligations, but at the same time does not unduly create a situation where there's going to be exposure in the litigation. An example of that is today. I had a case where this morning, before I joined the seminar, the webinar, where I spoke to one of the drivers, got the information from the driver as to what happened in an accident. Protected by attorney-client privilege, that'll be provided by the company. But if it goes directly to the company, a driver report, a driver statement, that's all open for litigation, and it's the type of thing that will enable the circumstances to be detrimental to the lawsuit and be an expense to the individuals on that. Another question that Bill popped up here is any guidance or parameters for independent adjusters who respond at the scene of an accident, or just let them do their thing? As I talked a little bit about that, one of the things we need to do is to make sure that the independent adjusters who go out there know not to take statements from the drivers. The other thing is, while they're going to take photographs, and they also give us mounted photographs, a set of the photographs, I don't want them to go out there and in those sets describe or give technical details of this. This is the point of the impact. That's for the accident reconstructionists to do. Their job is to go out there, document it, do what we need to do at the scene, and get the basic detailed information. Because the problem's going to be what else they do beyond that could well be discoverable in these circumstances. We don't want that and want to avoid it. And if an adjuster tells you, don't worry, I've been doing this for 40 years, worry. Because they're going to do what they want to do on those circumstances. Next question, do you give any guidance or parameters for independent adjusters? We talked about that. The next one, what's the most important thing for a driver to do after the accident? Yeah, about every other Saturday, I'm out in a firehouse or in a shop at a trucking company somewhere doing driver meetings. And it's something that I do for the benefit of the industry. The industry's been great to us, and it's something we do for free to give back in most circumstances if it's in the area, in the region. And I've done them all over the Northeast and do them for free. But one of the key things I do is tell the drivers what they should do at the scene of an accident. And if nothing else, I tell them, just remember to be quiet. You know, it's the circumstances. Ron White, the blue-collar comedian, said that he was pulled over one time. He knew for drunk driving. He knew he had the right to remain silent. He just didn't have the ability to do so. The key thing that they need to do is to give the information to the least extent that they have to give their driver's license, insurance, registration, and a brief, emphasis on brief, version of what happened in the accident. You know, driver, what happened? Well, I came over the hill. Traffic was stopped. I wasn't able to get stopped in time, period. That's it. Keep it limited. Keep it short. Other questions? Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you very much. We have more presenters coming up today. Take advantage of those. This is a great opportunity, and what a great event. In a time that we're limited from getting together and gathering, we have had, and the virtual Propane Expo has put together and made something useful and very valuable for us in that regard. But thank you very much, everybody, and hope you valued this. Any questions or any documents that I can help, send me an email, send me information. Thank you, guys.
Thanks a lot, Doug. By the way, Doug, can you hear me?
I can.
Awesome. Hey, thanks so much. It was really a fantastic presentation. So thanks a lot for presenting this to us. We did record it so that if some people might have missed it, we'll try to make it available here on the site. Thank you, Doug. And I just also want to, I'm going to scroll down on my screen and say thank you to the sponsors that really made this happen. It's really because of awesome. Hey, thanks so much. Let's go jump into the next presentation in about 6 minutes. Thanks. Bye-bye.